The Texas sun hung low over San Antonio on a Thursday afternoon in late September, casting long shadows across the small mechanic shop on the corner of Flores Street and Durango Boulevard. Inside the garage, Jake Henderson wiped the grease from his hands with an old rag, his calloused fingers moving automatically through the familiar motion. The smell of motor oil and worn rubber tires filled the air, mingling with the humid heat that clung to everything, despite the industrial fans rattling overhead. At 38 years old, Jake carried himself with the quiet discipline of someone who had seen too much. His broad shoulders were perpetually tense, and the lines etched around his green eyes told stories he preferred not to speak aloud. The tattoo on his left forearm, a faded eagle with the words 101st Airborne, was usually covered by his long-sleeved work shirt, even in the sweltering Texas heat. Some memories, he had learned, were better kept hidden beneath fabric and silence. "Jake, you got that transmission done on the Chevy?" called out Robert Patterson, the shop owner, from his cluttered office. Robert was a gray-haired man in his 60s who had given Jake this job 3 years ago without asking too many questions. He understood that some veterans needed work more than they needed sympathy. "Almost finished," Jake replied, his voice steady but distant. "Just tightening the last bolts. Should be ready in 20 minutes." Jake ducked back under the lifted truck, letting the mechanical work consume his attention. Under here, surrounded by metal and machinery, the world made sense. There were problems with clear solutions, parts that fit together in predictable ways. Unlike the chaos that sometimes erupted in his mind during the quiet hours, the memories of desert sand, the sound of helicopters, the faces of friends who never made it home from Afghanistan. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he slid out from under the vehicle to check it. A text message from Lily. "Dad, can you pick up milk on the way home? And maybe those cookies I like? Please?" A small smile cracked through Jake's weathered expression. Lily. His 12-year-old daughter was the only thing that kept him anchored to this world. She had her mother's warm brown eyes and infectious laugh, though that laugh had become less frequent in the 3 years since Amanda's death. The drunk driver who had run the red light on that rainy November evening had taken more than just his wife. He had stolen the light from their home, leaving behind a father who barely knew how to function and a 9-year-old girl who suddenly had to grow up too fast. "Sure thing, sweetheart," he texted back. "Be home by 6. How was school?" 3 dots appeared, then, "Fine. Got a B+ on my math test. Mrs. Rodriguez said I'm improving. Love you, Dad." Jake's chest tightened with pride mixed with guilt. Lily was doing well despite everything. Despite having a father who spent most evenings sitting in silence on the back porch, nursing a beer and listening to old country songs on a portable radio. She deserved better than a broken man who could barely hold himself together, who worked long hours at the shop just to avoid the emptiness of their small 3-bedroom house on the west side of town. He pocketed his phone and returned to the truck, finishing the job with practiced efficiency. By 5:30, he had clocked out, washed his hands in the industrial sink, and climbed into his 2008 Ford F-150. The truck had seen better days. The paint was faded, the passenger side mirror was held on with duct tape, and the air conditioning only worked on the highest setting. But it ran, and that was enough. Jake stopped at the H-E-B grocery store on Guadalupe Street, grabbing a gallon of milk and a package of chocolate chip cookies. As he waited in the checkout line, a poster near the register caught his eye. "Win VIP tickets to George Strait's intimate acoustic show in Austin. Call KTXN 98 5 to enter." George Strait, the king of country. Jake felt something stir in his chest, a memory of better times. He and Amanda had gone to see George Strait perform at the AT&T Center 7 years ago, back when life was simple and full of possibility. Amanda had worn her favorite blue sundress, and they had danced in the parking lot after the show while Carrying Your Love With Me played from someone's car radio. She had rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "This is perfect. You're perfect. We're perfect." Jake blinked hard, pushing the memory away. That life was gone. That version of himself, the man who could dance and laugh and believe in perfect moments, had died along with Amanda on that rain-soaked highway. "Sir, that'll be 8:47, the cashier said, pulling Jake back to the present. He paid quickly and drove home, the radio playing softly in the background. George Strait's voice filled the cab. "I cross my heart and promise to give all I've got to give to make all your dreams come true." Jake reached over and changed the station to news. Some songs were too heavy to carry while driving. The Henderson house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, a modest single-story home with beige siding and a small front yard that Jake kept neatly mowed out of habit more than pride. Lily's bicycle was propped against the garage door, and the living room curtains glowed with warm light. Inside, Lily was sprawled on the couch doing homework, her dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She looked up when Jake entered, her face brightening instantly. "Dad, you got the cookies!" "Made a promise, didn't I?" Jake set the grocery bag on the kitchen counter and kissed the top of her head. "How's the homework coming?" "Almost done. Just finishing up this English assignment." Lily closed her notebook and followed Jake into the kitchen. "Mrs. Patterson assigned us this essay about someone we admire. I wrote about you." Jake's hands stilled on the refrigerator door. "Me? Lily, you should write about someone important. Someone who's actually done something worth admiring. You are important, Dad. You served our country. You take care of me. You work hard every single day." Lily's voice carried a determination that reminded Jake so much of Amanda, it hurt. "You're the strongest person I know." Jake didn't feel strong. He felt like a man held together by routine and responsibility, going through the motions because stopping meant facing the void that Amanda had left behind. But he couldn't say that to his daughter, couldn't burden her with the weight of his brokenness. "That's real sweet of you, Lil." He pulled out the milk and poured her a glass. "I'm proud of you. You know that? That B+ on your math test is great." They ate dinner together, leftover spaghetti that Lily had reheated, and talked about her day at school. Lily told him about her friend Rebecca Walsh, who had gotten in trouble for passing notes during history class, and about the upcoming fall festival at Travis Middle School. Jake listened, asking questions when appropriate, trying to be present even when his mind wanted to drift to darker places. After dinner, while Lily showered and got ready for bed, Jake did what he did every evening. He grabbed a Lone Star beer from the fridge, walked out to the back porch, and sat in the old wooden chair that squeaked whenever he shifted his weight. The night air was still warm, carrying the scent of mesquite and cut grass. Neighbors' houses glowed in the darkness, and somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Jake pulled out his phone and opened his music app, scrolling to the playlist he had created years ago. Amanda's Favorites, he had named it. Every song was one she had loved, most of them George Strait. He pressed play and let the music wash over him, closing his eyes against the sting of tears that threatened to fall. "You look at me and I'm a flame. You breathe my name, and I'm a fire." George Strait sang through the small phone speaker. Amanda had called this song their song, even though they had never officially designated it as such. She had just loved the way Jake looked at her when it played, the way his normally guarded expression softened into something vulnerable and real. "I miss you," Jake whispered into the darkness. "God, Amanda, I miss you so much. I don't know how to do this without you. I don't know how to be enough for her." The music played on, indifferent to his pain. Jake took a long drink of beer, and stared up at the stars, feeling the familiar weight of loneliness settle over his shoulders, like an old coat he couldn't take off. Inside, Lily stood at her bedroom window, watching her father through the glass. She could see the slump of his shoulders, the way he held his phone like it was something precious and painful all at once. Her heart ached for him in ways that 12-year-olds shouldn't have to experience. She remembered her mother, the sound of her laugh, the way she smelled like vanilla and honey, the bedtime stories she used to tell, but the memories were fading, becoming softer and less distinct with each passing year. What she remembered most clearly was the before and after. Before the accident, her dad had been different, quicker to smile, more present, alive in a way that seemed impossible now. After the accident, it was like someone had turned down the volume on his life, leaving behind a man who moved through days on autopilot, never quite connecting to the world around him. Lily had tried everything. She kept her grades up so he wouldn't worry. She learned to cook simple meals and do her own laundry. She never complained about the things other kids had that she didn't. The new clothes, the fancy birthday parties, the family vacations. She understood, even at 12, that her father was doing the best he could with the broken pieces he had left. But it wasn't enough. She could see him slipping further away, retreating into himself one evening at a time. The music he listened to on the porch wasn't helping him heal. It was keeping him trapped in the past, reliving memories that only brought pain. Lily turned away from the window and sat at her small desk, opening her laptop. She pulled up the KTXN radio station website and found the contest page for the George Strait tickets. The rules were simple. Call in, answer a country music trivia question correctly, and be entered to win 2 VIP tickets to an intimate acoustic show in Austin, including backstage passes and a meet and greet with the King of Country himself. Her fingers hovered over the phone number. This was crazy, she knew. The chances of winning were probably 1 in 1,000. But as she thought about her father sitting alone in the darkness, listening to songs that broke his heart night after night, she knew she had to try. Maybe seeing George Strait live, creating new memories instead of just reliving old ones, could help him start to heal. Maybe it could remind him that life still held moments worth experiencing. Lily picked up her phone and dialed the number before she could talk herself out of it. The line rang 3 times before an energetic voice answered, "KTXN 98.5, Texas Country Radio. You're caller number 7. What's your name?" Lily Henderson," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Well, hi there, Lily. Are you ready for your trivia question? Answer correctly, and you're entered to win VIP tickets to see George Strait in Austin." Lily's heart pounded. "I'm ready." "All right, here's your question. What year did George Strait release his debut album, Strait Country?" Lily's mind raced. She had grown up listening to her parents play George Strait constantly. She had heard her father mention once, during a rare talkative moment, that George Strait had been making music since before Lily was born, starting way back in the early 80s. 1981? She guessed, holding her breath. That is absolutely correct. Congratulations, Lily Henderson. You've been entered to win. We'll be drawing the winner this Friday at noon. So keep your phone close. Good luck. The call ended, and Lily sat in stunned silence. She had done it. She was entered. Now all she could do was hope. Hope that luck would be on their side for once. Hope that maybe the universe owed them something good after all the bad. Hope that this crazy plan might actually work. She didn't tell her father about the contest that night, or the next day, or the day after that. It seemed better to wait, to see if she actually won before getting his hopes up. Jake was barely holding on as it was. She couldn't bear to disappoint him with another thing that didn't work out. Friday arrived with clear blue skies and temperatures creeping toward 85 degrees. Jake worked through his shift at the garage, replacing brake pads on a Honda Civic and diagnosing a mysterious rattle in a Toyota Camry's engine. He tried not to think about what day it was. The anniversary of Amanda's death was only 6 weeks away, and the dread of that approaching date had already started to wrap around his thoughts like thorny vines. At exactly noon, Lily sat in the cafeteria at Travis Middle School, her phone hidden in her lap under the table. Her friend Rebecca sat across from her, chattering about the upcoming weekend. But Lily barely heard her. All her attention was focused on her phone screen, where she had the KTXN website pulled up, waiting for the live announcement of the contest winner. The radio station's live stream crackled through her earbuds. "All right, Texas, the moment you've been waiting for. We're about to draw the winner of our George Strait VIP experience. 2 tickets to his intimate acoustic show in Austin, plus backstage passes and a meet and greet with the king himself." Lily's hands trembled. Around her, the cafeteria noise, laughing kids, clattering trays, the hum of conversation, faded into background static. And the winner is... A dramatic pause. Lily Henderson from San Antonio. Lily, if you're listening, check your phone because we're calling you right now. Lily's phone buzzed in her hand. She jumped up from the table so fast she nearly knocked over her chocolate milk, racing out of the cafeteria into the hallway before answering. "Hello? Lily, congratulations! You've won the George Strait VIP experience. How do you feel?" "Oh my God," Lily breathed, tears already streaming down her face. "Oh my God, I won. I actually won." "You sure did. Now, you've got 2 tickets, so who are you taking with you?" Without hesitation, Lily answered, "My dad. I'm taking my dad. He really needs this." Something in Lily's voice, the emotion, the desperation, the hope, made the DJ pause. "That's real sweet, Lily. I'm sure your dad is going to love it. We'll be sending you all the details by email. The show is in 2 weeks at the Paramount Theater in Austin. This is going to be a night you'll never forget." Lily hung up and stood in the empty hallway, her heart racing so fast she thought it might burst right out of her chest. She had done it. Against all odds, she had actually done it. Now came the hard part, telling her dad and somehow convincing him to go. Jake was replacing the exhaust system on a Ford Explorer when his phone rang that Friday afternoon. He almost didn't answer. His hands were covered in grime, and he was in the middle of a tricky bolt removal. But Lily's photo flashed on the screen, and his parental instincts overrode his irritation. "Lil, everything okay?" He wedged the phone between his ear and shoulder, still working on the bolt. "Dad!" Her voice was breathless, excited in a way he hadn't heard in years. "Dad, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise not to be mad." Jake's stomach clenched with worry. "What happened? Are you hurt? Did something happen at school?" No, nothing bad. It's good, I promise. I did something, and I hope you'll be happy about it." She paused, and Jake could hear her taking a deep breath. "I entered a radio contest, and I won. We won. 2 VIP tickets to see George Strait in Austin in 2 weeks, with backstage passes and everything." Jake straightened up so fast, he hit his head on the undercarriage of the Explorer. "What? Lily, what are you talking about?" The words spilled out of her in a rush. "I know you love George Strait, and I know how much you and Mom used to listen to his music together, and I thought maybe if we went together, it might help. It might make you feel better. I know I can't replace Mom, and I know nothing can make it hurt less. But Dad, you're so sad all the time, and I just wanted to do something, anything, to help you." By the end of her explanation, Lily was crying. Jake could hear it in her voice. The tremor, the desperate hope, the fear that she had overstepped or done something wrong. His own throat tightened with emotion. "Lily," he said softly. "Sweetheart, I'm not mad. I could never be mad at you for something like this. So you'll go? You'll come with me?" Jake closed his eyes, leaning against the Explorer. The thought of going to a George Strait concert, of deliberately immersing himself in all those memories, all that music that reminded him of Amanda, felt like voluntarily walking into a fire. But the hope in his daughter's voice, the effort she had made, the love behind her gesture, how could he say no? "Yeah, Lil, I'll go. We'll go together." Her squeal of joy nearly burst his eardrum. "Really? You promise?" "Oh, Dad, this is going to be so great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." After they hung up, Jake stood in the garage for a long moment, trying to process what had just happened. Robert appeared from the office, reading Jake's expression with the intuition of someone who had known combat veterans for decades. "Good news or bad news?" Robert asked. "I'm not sure yet," Jake admitted. "My daughter won concert tickets. George Strait, VIP experience in Austin." Robert let out a low whistle. "George Strait? That's a big deal. You like his music?" "Used to. Haven't really listened much since." Jake trailed off, but Robert understood. The old man knew about Amanda, about the accident, about the ghosts that haunted Jake's quiet moments. "Might be good for you," Robert said carefully. "Getting out of San Antonio for a night. Spending time with your girl. Making some new memories instead of just sitting with the old ones. Maybe." Jake didn't sound convinced, but he grabbed a rag and wiped his hands. "Mind if I take off a little early? Want to get home and talk to Lily about this?" "Go on. You've been working extra hours anyway. Consider it a gift." Jake drove home through late afternoon traffic, his mind churning. Part of him wanted to call Lily back and make excuses. He had to work. They couldn't afford the gas money to Austin. Something would come up. But another part, a part he had buried deep over the past 3 years, whispered that maybe this was a lifeline. Maybe his 12-year-old daughter saw something he couldn't, that he was drowning in grief, and needed someone to pull him back to shore. When he arrived home, Lily met him at the door, her face glowing with excitement. She had printed out the confirmation email from the radio station and had it clutched in her hands like a treasure map. "Look, Dad, it's real!" October 12th, at the Paramount Theater in Austin. The show starts at 8, but we're supposed to arrive at 6 for the VIP check-in and meet and greet. She was practically bouncing on her toes. "Can you believe we're actually going to meet George Strait?" The George Strait. Jake took the paper and scanned the details. It all looked legitimate. Tickets would be held at will call under Lily's name. Parking passes included. VIP lounge access before the show. It was the kind of experience that normally costs thousands of dollars, and his daughter had won it with a lucky phone call. "This is pretty incredible, Lil," he admitted, managing a genuine smile. "I'm proud of you for even thinking to enter." They spent the evening planning the trip. Austin was about an hour-and-a-half drive from San Antonio, so they would leave by 4:30 to ensure they arrived on time. Lily wanted to wear her nicest dress, a navy blue one with white flowers that Amanda had bought for her 9th birthday, one of the last gifts from her mother. Jake suggested they grab dinner at the venue, his treat, making it a full night out. As they talked, something shifted in the house. For the first time in years, there was lightness in the air. An anticipation of something good instead of just the heavy routine of getting through another day. Lily laughed freely, planning out every detail, and Jake found himself actually looking forward to something instead of just dreading the passage of time. That night, Jake didn't sit on the back porch with a beer. Instead, he stayed inside and watched a movie with Lily, some animated comedy she had been wanting to see. She fell asleep on the couch halfway through, her head resting against his shoulder, and Jake carefully carried her to her room, tucking her in the way he used to when she was little. "Love you, sweetheart," he whispered, brushing her hair back from her forehead. "Love you too, Dad," she mumbled, already half asleep. "I'm so glad you're coming with me." The next 2 weeks passed with unusual speed. Jake found himself thinking about the concert more than he expected, feeling both nervous and curious about how the night would unfold. He took his truck to a car wash for the first time in months, wanting it to look decent for the drive to Austin. He even went to Target and bought himself a new button-down shirt. Dark green, something Amanda would have said brought out his eyes. Lily counted down the days with barely contained excitement. She told all her friends at school about the concert, practiced what she might say if she met George Strait, and researched every detail about the Paramount Theater's history. The old movie palace, built in 1915, had been restored to its original grandeur and was known for its intimate atmosphere and perfect acoustics. 3 days before the concert, Lily had an idea that kept her up late into the night. She sat at her desk with a blank piece of notebook paper in front of her, chewing on the end of her pen, trying to figure out how to put her thoughts into words. Finally, she started writing. "Dear Mr. Strait, my name is Lily Henderson. I'm 12 years old, and I'll be at your concert in Austin on Friday with my dad, Jake. I wanted to write you this letter because my dad is your biggest fan, and your music means more to our family than you could ever know. 3 years ago, my mom died in a car accident. Her name was Amanda, and she was the best mom in the world. She loved your music so much. She and my dad used to dance in our living room to Carrying Your Love With Me, and they went to see you in concert before I was born and said it was one of the best nights of their lives. Since my mom died, my dad has been really sad. He tries to hide it from me, but I can see it. He listens to your songs every night on our back porch, and sometimes I see him crying. I think the music reminds him of my mom, but it also makes him sadder. I won these tickets because I wanted to help my dad remember that life can still be good, even after something terrible happens. He's a veteran. He served in Afghanistan, and he works so hard to take care of me, but I can tell he's struggling. I know you probably get a lot of letters and can't respond to all of them, but if there's any way you could play Carrying Your Love With Me at the concert, it would mean everything to my dad. It was his and my mom's special song. Thank you for your music and for giving my family so many happy memories. Sincerely, Lily Henderson." She read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face, before folding it carefully and putting it in an envelope. She had no idea if George Strait would ever actually read it, but she had to try. For her dad, she had to try everything. The morning of October 12th arrived with perfect autumn weather. Clear skies, temperatures in the low 70s, a gentle breeze that rustled the turning leaves on the oak trees lining their street. Jake woke up early, his stomach tight with nerves that felt foreign after years of emotional numbness. He made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, and found Lily already awake. Her dress laid out on her bed, makeup tutorials playing on her laptop. "Dad, can you help me with my hair later?" she asked, appearing in the kitchen doorway. "I want it to look nice, maybe in that braid Mom used to do." Jake's chest constricted. "I don't know if I remember how to do that braid, Lil. I found a video. We can follow it together." They spent the morning in comfortable companionship, moving through the house with purpose and anticipation. Jake showered and shaved carefully, trimming his beard closer than he had in months. He put on his new green shirt and his nicest pair of jeans, dark wash, no holes, and his cleanest boots. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back. He looked almost alive, almost present. Lily emerged from her room at 4 o'clock, and Jake felt his breath catch. She looked so much like Amanda. The same delicate features, the same warm eyes, the same smile that could light up a room. The navy dress fit her perfectly, and she had managed to style her hair into a side braid that was pretty close to the one Amanda used to wear. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," Jake said, his voice rough with emotion. "Thanks, Dad. You look really good, too." She grabbed her small purse, checking for the 20th time that she had the envelope with her letter inside. "Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." They climbed into the F-150 and headed north on I-35 toward Austin. The drive passed with easy conversation. Lily talked about school, about her upcoming science project on renewable energy, about Rebecca's drama with another girl in their class. Jake listened and contributed when appropriate, feeling more engaged than he had in years. The radio played softly in the background, a mix of country and classic rock. As they approached Austin, the skyline came into view. The distinctive tower of the University of Texas, the pink granite of the Capitol building, the modern high-rises that had sprung up in recent years. The city was growing fast, transforming from the quirky music town into a booming tech hub. But it still retained its character in pockets, like the historic 6th Street Entertainment District, where the Paramount Theater stood. Jake found parking in a garage 2 blocks from the venue and fed enough coins into the meter to cover the evening. As they walked toward the Paramount, Lily slipped her hand into his, something she hadn't done in years, considering herself too old for such gestures. Jake squeezed her fingers gently, grateful for the connection. The Paramount Theater was a stunning example of classical architecture, its ornate facade featuring elaborate terracotta details and a vintage marquee that spelled out in bright lights, "George Strait, Intimate Acoustic, tonight, sold out." A line of people already stretched down the block. Fans in cowboy hats and boots, couples dressed up for a special night, groups of friends laughing and taking selfies. But Jake and Lily didn't have to wait in that line. They walked to the VIP entrance on the side of the building, where a friendly woman in a black KTXN radio shirt checked their names on a tablet. "Lily Henderson, our contest winner. Welcome." The woman handed them special laminates on lanyards marked VIP Access and gestured toward a door. "Head right through there. The VIP lounge is set up with food and drinks, and the meet and greet will start in about 30 minutes. George is really looking forward to meeting everyone." Lily's eyes went wide. "We're really going to meet him? Like, actually talk to him?" "Absolutely. That's the VIP experience." The woman smiled warmly at Jake. "You've got a special daughter there. The way she talked about you on the radio when she won, well, it was real sweet." Jake looked down at Lily in surprise. "What did you say on the radio?" Lily blushed. "I just said you needed this, that you deserved something good." The VIP lounge was elegant and intimate, located in one of the Paramount's restored side rooms. Crystal chandeliers hung from ornate plasterwork ceilings, and the walls were decorated with vintage photographs of performers who had graced the stage over the decades. A buffet table offered Texas barbecue, fresh vegetables, and various desserts, while a bar served soft drinks, beer, and wine. About 50 other VIP ticket holders mingled in the space, their excitement palpable. Jake got Lily a Coke and himself a beer. Just one, he promised himself, and they filled small plates with brisket and potato salad. They found seats near a window overlooking 6th Street, where the evening foot traffic was already picking up. "Dad, I need to tell you something," Lily said nervously, setting down her fork. "I did something else besides just entering the contest." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" She pulled the envelope from her purse and handed it to him. I wrote a letter to George Strait about you and Mom and everything. I was going to try to give it to him during the meet and greet, but I want you to read it first to make sure it's okay. Jake opened the envelope with trembling fingers and read Lily's careful handwriting. With each sentence, his throat grew tighter, his vision blurred with unshed tears. By the time he reached the end, he had to look away, pressing his palm against his eyes to keep from breaking down completely in front of 50 strangers. Lily, he managed finally. This is God, sweetheart. I don't even know what to say. Are you mad? She asked in a small voice. Mad? No, I'm not mad. He struggled to find the words. I'm overwhelmed, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that you've had to worry about me like this. That's not your job. You're the kid. I'm supposed to take care of you, not the other way around. We take care of each other, Lily said firmly. That's what family does. Before Jake could respond, a voice came over the lounge's speaker system. Attention VIP guests. The meet and greet with George Strait will begin in 5 minutes. Please form a line near the stage door. Thank you. The room erupted in excited chatter as people quickly finished their drinks and checked their appearance in phone cameras. Lily grabbed Jake's hand again, her nervousness evident in her grip. What if I freeze up? She whispered. What if I can't even talk? Then I'll talk for you, Jake assured her. We'll get through it together. They lined up with the other guests, inching forward as each person or couple got their moment with the country music legend. Jake could see George Strait through the doorway, tall and lean in dark jeans and a crisp white shirt, his signature cowboy hat in place, his smile genuine as he greeted each fan with warmth and patience. And then it was their turn. George Strait's handshake was firm and warm as Jake stepped forward, Lily pressed close to his side. Up close, the legendary singer looked exactly as he did in photos and videos, weathered in a way that spoke of a life well lived, with crow's feet around his eyes that deepened when he smiled. But there was something more authentic about him in person, a grounded quality that immediately put Jake at ease despite his nervousness. Good to meet you folks, George said, his Texas accent unmistakable. What are your names? I'm Jake Henderson, and this is my daughter, Lily. She's the one who won the radio contest, Jake managed, his voice steadier than he expected. George turned his attention to Lily, crouching slightly to meet her at eye level. Well, Lily, congratulations on winning. You excited for the show tonight? Lily nodded frantically, words temporarily escaping her. Then, remembering the letter clutched in her hand, she thrust it forward with sudden determination. Mr. Strait, I wrote you something. I know you're probably really busy, but if you could maybe read it later, it would mean everything to us. George took the envelope, his expression curious but kind. Of course I'll read it. Thank you for taking the time to write. He glanced at Jake with the knowing look of a father himself. George had children and had experienced loss in his own life, with the death of his daughter Jennifer in a car accident back in 1986. There was something in Jake's bearing, in the way he held himself, that George seemed to recognize. You a veteran? George asked Jake directly. Jake was surprised by the observation. Yes, sir. Army, 101st Airborne. Served in Afghanistan. Thank you for your service. George shook Jake's hand again, this time with both of his hands, a gesture of deeper respect. My brother served in the Army too. I know it takes a special kind of strength to do what you did, and to come home and keep going. Jake felt something crack open in his chest, some tightly held defense beginning to crumble. Trying my best, sir. That's all any of us can do. George gestured to a photographer nearby. Let's get a picture of the three of us before you head to your seats. They posed together, George standing between Jake and Lily with his hands on their shoulders, The camera flashed, capturing a moment that Lily knew she would treasure forever. Her father actually smiling, genuinely smiling, for the first time in 3 years. As they turned to leave, George called after them. "Hey, Jake?" When Jake looked back, George tapped the envelope Lily had given him. "I'll read this before I go on. Promise." "Thank you," Jake said, the words carrying more weight than a simple pleasantry. "Really, thank you." The usher led them into the main theater, and both Jake and Lily gasped at the beauty of the space. The Paramount had been restored to its 1915 glory. Ornate balconies, elaborate plasterwork, a hand-painted ceiling that depicted clouds and stars, vintage light fixtures that cast a warm glow over everything. Red velvet seats descended toward a stage that was set up simply. A single microphone on a stand, a guitar on a stand beside it, and warm amber lighting that created an intimate atmosphere despite the theater's grand scale. Their seats were in the 4th row. Center section. Perfect. All around them, fans settled in, the air buzzing with anticipation. Jake noticed the diversity of the crowd. Young couples on dates, older folks who had probably been listening to George Strait since the 80s, families with teenagers, groups of friends celebrating special occasions. Country music, especially George Strait's brand of traditional, honest country, had a way of bringing people together across generations. "Dad, I can't believe this is happening," Lily whispered, gripping the armrest. "We're really here. We really met him." "You made this happen, Lil. All of it." Jake put his arm around her shoulders. "I know I haven't been the easiest person to live with these past few years. I know I've been distant, but I want you to know that I see what you're trying to do, and I love you more than I could ever put into words." Lily leaned into her father's embrace, feeling safer and more content than she had since her mother died. "I love you too, Dad. I just want you to be happy again, even just a little bit." The house lights dimmed, and the audience erupted in applause. A moment later, a spotlight illuminated the stage, and George Strait walked out with his acoustic guitar, waving to the crowd with humble appreciation. He settled onto a tall stool, adjusted his guitar, and leaned toward the microphone. "Good evening, Austin," he said, his voice filling the theater without any apparent effort. More applause, some whistles, someone shouting, "We love you, George," from the balcony. George chuckled. "Well, I love y'all too. Thank you for coming out tonight. This is a special kind of show for me. No band, just me and this guitar and some songs. Some old ones you probably know, maybe a few you haven't heard in a while, and hopefully we'll all have ourselves a good time." He launched into Amarillo by Morning, his fingers moving expertly over the guitar strings, his voice as smooth and authentic as ever. The entire theater seemed to lean forward, captivated. There was something magical about hearing these songs stripped down to their essence, without the production and polish of a full band. It was raw and honest and deeply moving. Jake felt the familiar ache in his chest as the music washed over him. These were the songs he had spent 3 years avoiding except in his darkest moments. The songs that reminded him of everything he had lost. But here, in this beautiful theater, sitting beside his daughter who loved him enough to orchestrate this entire experience, the ache felt different. Less like a wound, and more like a bittersweet memory. Still painful, but not entirely unwelcome. George moved through his catalog with the ease of someone who had been performing for over 40 years. The Chair, I Cross My Heart, Check Yes or No. Each song was met with enthusiastic applause and the occasional audience members singing along softly. Between songs, George shared brief stories about the writing or recording of certain tracks, his humor dry and self-deprecating in a way that made the massive star feel approachable and real. After about 45 minutes, George paused to take a drink of water. He adjusted his position on the stool and pulled the envelope from his back pocket. Lily's letter. Jake felt his daughter stiffen beside him, her hand reaching for his. "Before I continue," George said, his tone shifting to something more serious, "I want to share something with y'all. A young lady gave me a letter tonight during the meet and greet. I promised her I'd read it, and I did. And, well, it touched me in a way I didn't expect." He looked out into the audience, his eyes seeming to find Jake and Lily even in the dim theater lighting. "This letter reminded me why I do what I do, why music matters, because it connects us to each other, to our memories, to the people we've loved and lost." The theater had gone completely silent. George carefully unfolded the letter, his reading glasses, a concession to age he rarely wore in public, perched on his nose. Lily writes about her father, Jake, who's a veteran, about her mother, Amanda, who passed away 3 years ago, about how music, my music, which I'm honored and humbled by, has been both a comfort and a source of pain for their family. George's voice wavered slightly, his own emotions evident. She talks about how her dad sits on their back porch every night, listening to songs that remind him of his wife, crying in the dark when he thinks Lily can't see. Lily was crying now, tears streaming silently down her face. Jake wrapped his arm around her, his own eyes burning. "And then," Lily asks, George continued, "if I might play a specific song, Carrying Your Love With Me." She says it was her parents' special song, the one they used to dance to, and that hearing it tonight might help her dad remember that life can still hold good moments, even after tragedy. George folded the letter and removed his glasses, looking directly toward where Jake and Lily sat. "Jake and Lily Henderson, I want you to know something. I lost my daughter, Jennifer, in a car accident back in 1986. She was 13 years old, and for a long time after that, I didn't know if I could keep making music, because every song reminded me of what I'd lost. But eventually I realized that the music wasn't the enemy. The music was one of the ways Jennifer stayed with me, one of the ways I kept her memory alive." The theater remained absolutely silent, except for the sound of people quietly crying. George's vulnerability, his willingness to share such personal pain, had transformed the concert into something more profound than entertainment. "So yes, Lily, I'm going to play that song for you and your dad, and for your mom, Amanda, and for everyone here tonight who's loved and lost and is trying to figure out how to keep moving forward." George adjusted his guitar and looked down for a moment, collecting himself. When he looked up again, his eyes were wet, but his voice was strong. "This is Carrying Your Love With Me." The opening notes filled the Paramount Theater, and Jake felt like he couldn't breathe. Lily's hand found his and squeezed tight. This song, this specific song, held so many memories. Dancing in the living room with Amanda on a random Tuesday evening because the song came on the radio. The two of them slow dancing in the parking lot after that concert 7 years ago. Amanda humming it while she cooked dinner. Her terrible off-key rendition that somehow became the most beautiful sound Jake had ever heard. George's voice wrapped around the lyrics with such tenderness and understanding that it felt less like a performance and more like a message directly from the universe to Jake's shattered heart. "Baby, all I got is time, and time is not my friend. We can start again. You know me, won't you take my hand? You're the one thing that I'm sure of. Like the sun coming up every morning, I'm carrying your love with me." Jake had spent 3 years running from these memories, terrified that if he let himself feel the full weight of his loss, he would be crushed beneath it. But sitting in this theater, holding his daughter's hand, listening to George Strait sing the song that had meant everything to him and Amanda, Jake realized something crucial. The weight wasn't going to crush him. It was part of him now, woven into who he was. Running from it only made him hollow. Accepting it, carrying it with him the way the song suggested, might actually allow him to heal. Tears ran freely down Jake's face now, and he didn't try to hide them. Beside him, Lily was crying too. But when Jake looked at her, he saw something unexpected in her expression. Not sadness, but relief. Relief that her father was finally letting himself feel, finally allowing the emotions he had bottled up for 3 years to surface. The song ended, and the applause was deafening. People stood, giving George a standing ovation, not just for the performance, but for the courage to be vulnerable, to share his own pain, to turn a concert into a collective moment of healing. George stood from his stool and looked out at the audience. "Music has power," he said simply. "The power to hurt and the power to heal, sometimes at the same time. Thank you all for being here tonight, for sharing this with me." He paused, then added, "Jake, Amanda's love isn't gone. You're carrying it with you, in your daughter, in your memories, in every morning you wake up and choose to keep going. That takes more strength than most people will ever understand." The rest of the concert passed in a blur of emotion. George played several more songs. "Give It Away," "I Saw God Today," "Love Without End," "Amen," each one landing with new weight and meaning. When the show finally ended, after 3 encores and nearly 2 hours of music, the audience filed out slowly, reluctant to leave the sacred space that had been created. Jake and Lily sat in their seats even after most of the theater had emptied, neither quite ready to return to the real world. Finally, an usher approached them gently. "Excuse me, are you Jake and Lily Henderson?" When Jake nodded, the usher smiled. "George would like to see you backstage, if you have a few minutes." Lily's eyes went wide. "Really? He wants to see us again? Really? Follow me." They were led through a side door and down a narrow hallway lined with vintage posters from previous Paramount shows. The backstage area was surprisingly small and utilitarian compared to the ornate theater. Concrete floors, exposed pipes, the organized chaos of equipment cases and instrument stands. George was in a small dressing room, still in his concert clothes, but with his guitar safely back in its case. He stood when Jake and Lily entered, his expression warm and genuinely pleased to see them. "I hope that was okay," George said, getting straight to the point. "I probably should have asked your permission before reading the letter out loud like that, but it just felt like something that needed to be shared, that people needed to hear." "It was more than okay," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't even have words for what that meant. What you said about carrying love with you, about it taking strength to keep going. I needed to hear that. I've spent 3 years thinking I was weak for not being able to move past Amanda's death, but maybe the real weakness would have been giving up entirely." George nodded, understanding in his eyes. Grief doesn't have a timeline. Anyone who tells you otherwise has never really lost someone. But at some point, you have to decide if you're going to let the grief define your whole life, or if you're going to make space for it, while also making space for new joy, new memories, new reasons to wake up in the morning. He turned to Lily. "And you, young lady, are incredibly brave. Taking care of your dad the way you have, trying to help him heal, that's not easy at your age. But remember, it's not all on you. Your dad's healing is his journey. You can support him, but you can't fix him. Okay?" Lily nodded, fresh tears spilling over. "Okay, thank you, Mr. Strait." For everything, for the concert and the song and just everything. George pulled out a permanent marker and grabbed a concert poster from a nearby table, signing it with a personal message. To Jake and Lily, carry the love forward. You're both stronger than you know. George Strait. He handed it to them along with his personal contact card. If you ever need anything, or if you just want to talk, you reach out. I mean that. They talked for a few more minutes about lighter topics. Lily's school, Jake's work at the mechanic shop, George's upcoming tour schedule. It was surprisingly easy, like talking to a wise uncle rather than a country music icon. Eventually, George's tour manager appeared to remind him they needed to wrap up for the night, and Jake and Lily said their goodbyes, each shaking George's hand one more time. As they walked back through the Paramount and out onto 6th Street, Austin's nightlife was in full swing around them. Live music pouring from bars, people laughing and talking, the smell of barbecue and beer in the air. But Jake and Lily moved through it all in a bubble of their own, processing everything that had happened. "Dad?" Lily asked as they reached the parking garage. "Are you okay?" Jake stopped walking and looked at his daughter. Really looked at her, maybe for the first time in months. She had grown so much in the past 3 years, not just physically, but in wisdom and compassion and strength. She was becoming the kind of person Amanda would have been incredibly proud of. "I think I might be," Jake said slowly. "Maybe not fully, not yet, but more okay than I've been in a long time." He pulled Lily into a tight hug, right there on the street. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for loving me enough to do all this. Always, Dad. Always." The drive back to San Antonio was quiet, but comfortable. The kind of silence that came from emotional exhaustion rather than distance or discomfort. Jake kept the radio off, content with the sound of tires on highway and the occasional passing truck. Lily dozed in the passenger seat, her head resting against a jacket she had balled up against the window, the signed poster carefully protected in a tube between her feet. Jake's mind replayed the evening in fragments. George's weathered hands on the guitar, the way his voice had wrapped around those familiar lyrics, the moment when he had read Lily's letter aloud to a theater full of strangers. Most of all, Jake thought about what George had said backstage. You have to decide if you're going to let the grief define your whole life, or if you're going to make space for it, while also making space for new joy. For 3 years, Jake had let grief occupy every corner of his existence. It had colored every interaction, every thought, every moment alone. He had wrapped it around himself like armor, thinking that if he held on to the pain tightly enough, he wouldn't lose Amanda completely. But the truth, he was beginning to understand, was that holding on to grief so tightly hadn't kept Amanda close. It had kept him from living the kind of life she would have wanted for him and Lily. Amanda had been vibrant and full of life, the kind of person who found joy in small moments. A perfectly brewed cup of coffee, a funny joke, an unexpected thunderstorm on a summer afternoon. She had loved deeply and laughed easily, and believed that every day held some small magic if you looked for it. The way Jake had been living, just going through the motions, existing but not really living, would have broken her heart. They arrived home just after midnight. Jake carried a sleeping Lily from the truck to her bed, carefully removing her shoes and covering her with her favorite quilt, the one Amanda's mother had made with patches from old family clothes. He stood in the doorway of her room for a moment, watching her sleep, feeling a fierce surge of love and protectiveness that reminded him why he had to keep trying, keep healing, keep moving forward. In his own room, Jake changed into sleep clothes and sat on the edge of his bed, the signed poster propped against his dresser. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking. Normally, this would be when Jake would grab a beer and head to the back porch for his nightly ritual of solitary grief. But tonight, something had shifted. The pull toward that lonely routine felt weaker, less automatic. Instead, Jake opened the drawer of his nightstand and pulled out an old photo album, one he hadn't been able to look at since the funeral. The leather cover was worn, and the pages crinkled as he opened them, revealing snapshots of a life that felt simultaneously close and impossibly distant. There was Amanda on their wedding day, her smile radiant in a simple white dress, Jake beside her in his dress uniform, both of them impossibly young and full of hope. Amanda pregnant with Lily, her hands cradling her belly, Jake's hands covering hers. Lily as a newborn, tiny and wrinkled, Amanda holding her with a mixture of exhaustion and wonder. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, random Tuesday afternoons at the park, a whole life documented in fading photographs. Jake traced his finger over one particular photo. Amanda and him at that George Strait concert 7 years ago, taken by a stranger in the parking lot afterward. They were both laughing, caught mid-dance, Amanda's head thrown back in joy. Jake remembered that exact moment. She had just stepped on his foot for the third time, and instead of apologizing, she had laughed and said, "Good thing you love me, despite my terrible dancing." "I do love you," Jake whispered to the photograph. "I always will, but I can't keep living like you're going to walk through the door any minute. I can't keep waiting for a version of life that doesn't exist anymore." It felt like betrayal to say it out loud, but it also felt like truth. Loving Amanda didn't mean freezing himself in the moment of her death. It meant carrying her forward, the way the song said, while also being present for the daughter who still needed him, who deserved more than a ghost of a father. Jake closed the album and placed it back in the drawer, but this time he didn't shut the drawer completely. Leaving it slightly open felt symbolic somehow. Not closing off the past, but not letting it trap him either. The next morning was a Saturday, and Jake woke to the smell of bacon cooking. He stumbled into the kitchen to find Lily at the stove, carefully flipping strips in a pan, the signed George Strait poster already hung on the living room wall. "Morning, Dad," she said brightly. "I'm making us a proper breakfast. We're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" "Last night. And—" She hesitated, turning to face him. "And you. You seemed different after the concert. Lighter somehow. Like maybe you're starting to come back to me." Jake's throat tightened. He walked over and hugged Lily from behind, resting his chin on top of her head. "I'm trying, Lil. I'm really trying." They ate breakfast together at the small kitchen table. And for the first time in years, Jake actually tasted his food instead of just mechanically chewing and swallowing. The bacon was slightly burnt, but Lily had tried, and that made it perfect. They talked about the concert, replaying their favorite moments, marveling at George's generosity and openness, laughing about how starstruck they had both been. "What do you want to do today?" Jake asked when they had finished eating. Lily looked surprised by the question. Saturdays usually meant Jake worked on the truck or did chores around the house, while Lily occupied herself with homework or video games. The idea of actually planning an activity together was novel. "We could go to Brackenridge Park," Lily suggested tentatively. "We used to go there all the time with Mom. Feed the ducks, ride the train." Jake's first instinct was to refuse, to avoid another place saturated with memories of Amanda. But then he remembered George's words, "Make space for grief," while also making space for new joy. Going to the park didn't mean forgetting Amanda. It meant creating new memories while honoring the old ones. "Yeah," Jake said, surprised by his own answer. "Let's do that. Let's go to Brackenridge." An hour later, they were walking through the sprawling park on San Antonio's north side. The morning sun filtering through the oak trees, families and joggers and cyclists sharing the trails. The San Antonio River wound through the park, and ducks paddled in the shallow water, occasionally coming to shore hoping for handouts. Jake and Lily stopped at a convenience store on the way and bought a loaf of bread specifically for feeding the ducks. Lily had insisted, saying it was tradition. They sat on a bench near the water's edge, tearing off small pieces and tossing them to the eager birds. Mom always said the brown duck was her favorite, Lily said quietly. She said it looked scrappy and determined, like it wasn't going to let the bigger ducks push it around. Jake smiled, remembering. That sounds like your mom. She always rooted for the underdog. Tell me a story about her, Lily requested. Something I might not remember or might not have known. Jake thought for a moment, then began. Before we got married, when we were still dating, your mom decided she wanted to learn to play guitar. She bought this cheap acoustic from a pawn shop and was determined to teach herself. She practiced every night for weeks, her fingers getting blistered and sore, but she kept at it. Did she ever get good at it? Lily asked. Not even a little bit, Jake laughed. She was terrible. She could barely get through 3 chords without messing up, but she was so determined, and watching her try so hard at something just because she wanted to learn it, that's when I knew I wanted to marry her. She had this way of throwing herself completely into everything, whether she was good at it or not. What happened to the guitar? It's in the attic, packed away in a box. Jake paused, considering. Maybe we should get it out. You could learn to play if you wanted. You could be the guitar player your mom always wanted to be. Lily's face lit up. Really? You'd teach me? I don't know much, but we could learn together. Take lessons, maybe. Make it something we do together. They spent the rest of the morning at the park, riding the miniature train that circled through the trees, watching kids play on the playground, getting ice cream from a vendor near the parking lot. Jake felt lighter than he had in years, as if some massive weight he hadn't even realized he was carrying had been lifted off his shoulders. That afternoon, true to his word, Jake climbed into the attic and found the box containing Amanda's guitar. It was dusty, and the strings were dead, but the instrument itself was still intact. He brought it down and set it on the kitchen table. Lily watching with excitement. We'll get it restrung, Jake said. Get it tuned up proper. Then we'll figure out how to play it together. Over the next few weeks, something remarkable happened in the Henderson household. Life began to return. Not the same life they had before Amanda died. That was impossible. But a new version of life. One that acknowledged the loss while also embracing the present. Jake started coming home from work earlier, spending evenings with Lily instead of isolating himself on the back porch. They enrolled in guitar lessons together at a local music school, struggling through basic chords and simple songs, laughing at their mistakes instead of getting frustrated. Jake found himself looking forward to these lessons, to the challenge of learning something new, to the shared experience with his daughter. He also started talking to a therapist, Dr. Patricia Ramos, a woman in her 50s who specialized in grief counseling and PTSD. It was Robert who had suggested it, gently mentioning that the VA offered free counseling services for veterans. Jake's first instinct had been to refuse, to insist he didn't need help. But Lily's voice in his head, "We take care of each other," had convinced him to at least try. Dr. Ramos didn't push Jake to get over his grief or rush his healing. Instead, she helped him understand that grief and joy could coexist, that loving Amanda's memory didn't mean being perpetually sad, that moving forward wasn't betrayal. "Your wife died," Dr. Ramos said during one session. "But you didn't. You're still here, and your daughter needs you here, really here, not just physically present. What would Amanda want for you and Lily?" Jake had cried during that session, ugly tears that he had held back for 3 years. She'd want us to be happy. She'd want Lily to have a father who showed up for her, who was present and engaged. She'd want me to live, not just exist. Then that's what you work toward, Dr. Ramos had said simply. Not because you're forgetting Amanda, but because you're honoring what she would have wanted. Jake also started connecting with other veterans through a support group that met at a community center on Wednesday evenings. Hearing other men and women talk about their struggles with reintegration, with PTSD, with loss, made Jake feel less alone. There was Daniel Rodriguez, who had served in Iraq and struggled with nightmares. There was Christine Walsh, an army medic who couldn't stop seeing the faces of soldiers she couldn't save. They understood each other in ways civilians often couldn't, and that understanding created bonds of support and accountability. One evening in early November, about 3 weeks after the concert, Jake was sitting on the back porch, but this time with Lily beside him, both of them practicing guitar chords. The radio played softly in the background, and when a George Strait song came on, Jake didn't change the station. Instead, he let it play, let himself feel the bittersweet ache of memory, without letting it consume him. "Dad?" Lily said during a break between chords. "I'm proud of you, for trying, for getting help, for not giving up." Jake set down his guitar and pulled Lily close. "I'm proud of you too, sweetheart, for being braver than anyone your age should have to be, for saving me when I didn't even know I needed saving." "We saved each other," Lily corrected. "Yeah," Jake agreed. "I guess we did." The anniversary of Amanda's death came in mid-November, 3 years to the day. Jake woke up that morning with the familiar heaviness in his chest. But this time, it felt manageable, like grief he could carry, rather than grief that would crush him. He and Lily had planned for this day, talked about it in therapy and over dinner, deciding together how they wanted to mark it. They drove to the cemetery where Amanda was buried, a peaceful place on the east side of town with old oak trees and well-maintained grounds. They brought flowers, sunflowers, Amanda's favorite, and sat beside her headstone for a while, talking to her. "Hey, Amanda," Jake said softly. "It's been 3 years. I'm sorry it took me so long to find my way back to something resembling life. But I'm trying now. Lily and I are both trying. We miss you every single day, but we're learning how to be okay anyway. I hope that's all right with you." Lily added her own message. "Hi, Mom. I won the radio contest like I told you I would when I was praying last month. We got to meet George Strait, and he played your favorite song. Dad cried, but it was a good cry, I think. We're learning to play your guitar. I'm not very good yet, but Dad says I'm better than you were. So that's something." She laughed through tears. "I love you. I wish you were here, but I'm going to make you proud anyway." They sat for a while longer, then drove home and spent the rest of the day looking through photo albums, telling stories, letting themselves remember without letting the memories paralyze them. That evening, Jake didn't sit alone on the porch. Instead, he and Lily made dinner together. Amanda's famous chili recipe, the one that was probably too spicy for a 12-year-old, but that Lily insisted on anyway, and they ate it while watching Amanda's favorite movie, laughing at the parts she had always laughed at. It wasn't a happy day, exactly, but it wasn't a day of complete devastation either. It was a day of acknowledgement, of honoring what was lost, while also affirming what remained. December arrived with unseasonably cold weather for San Antonio, temperatures dipping into the 40s at night and barely reaching 60 during the day. Jake found himself actually enjoying the cooler air after months of relentless Texas heat. He had started jogging in the mornings before work, something Dr. Ramos had suggested to help with his PTSD symptoms and general mental health. The first few runs had been brutal, his 38-year-old body protesting the sudden activity, But he had persisted, and now he actually looked forward to those early morning miles. Lily was doing well in school, her grades improving as the stress of worrying constantly about her father diminished. She had joined the middle school choir and discovered she had a decent singing voice, something that thrilled Jake when he attended her first concert. Watching her stand on the stage in the school auditorium, confidently singing with her classmates, he felt a surge of pride so intense it almost hurt. The mechanic shop was busy with pre-holiday repairs and maintenance, everyone wanting their vehicles in good shape for travel to visit family. Jake worked long hours, but no longer used work as an escape from life. Instead, he came home energized, ready to spend time with Lily, to practice guitar, to make dinner together, to watch whatever show she was currently obsessed with on streaming. Robert had noticed the change in Jake and commented on it one afternoon while they were both under the hood of a particularly stubborn Dodge Ram. "You seem different," the older man observed. "Lighter. More like the man I imagine you were before." "Well, before everything. I feel different," Jake admitted. "That concert. It was like something broke open in me. Or maybe broke through. I'd been so stuck in my grief that I couldn't see any other way to be. But my daughter showed me that you can honor the past while still living in the present." "That's wise beyond her years," Robert said. "She's had to grow up too fast. But maybe we can slow down a bit now. Let her just be a kid again." A few days before Christmas, Jake received an unexpected package in the mail. The return address was from Nashville, Tennessee, but there was no name, just a P.O. box number. Curious, he opened it to find a handwritten note on fancy stationery and a CD. The note read, "Jake and Lily, I've been thinking about you both since our meeting in Austin. Your story stayed with me, and I wanted to reach out and see how you're doing." Enclosed is a recording of that night's performance, including "Carrying Your Love with Me." "Baf, I had my sound engineer make a special copy just for you. I hope listening to it brings comfort rather than pain, and reminds you that you're not alone in your grief or your healing. I also wanted you to know that I've started working with some veterans organizations to provide free concerts and music therapy programs. Your courage in sharing your story inspired me to do more, to use whatever platform I have to help folks who are struggling. So in a way, you've helped more people than you know. Wishing you both peace and happiness this holiday season and always. Your friend, George Strait, P.S. Lily. Don't forget what I told you backstage. Your dad's healing is his journey, but you supporting each other is beautiful. Keep being the remarkable young woman you are." Jake read the note 3 times, his eyes stinging with grateful tears. That George Strait, one of the biggest names in country music, a man who could have forgotten about them the moment they left the theater, had taken time to follow up, to send this gift, to let them know they mattered. It was overwhelming in the best possible way. He showed the note to Lily when she got home from school, and she burst into tears of joy. "He remembered us. He actually remembered." "More than that," Jake said. "He let our story mean something. He's using it to help other people." They listened to the CD that evening, the recording crystal clear despite being from a live performance. When "Carrying Your Love with Me" played, they both cried. But this time, the tears felt cleansing rather than devastating. Jake held Lily close, and they swayed slightly to the music. A simple dance in their living room that honored Amanda while also affirming their own resilience. Christmas came with its mixture of joy and sadness. It was still hard, marking another holiday without Amanda. But Jake and Lily had developed new traditions to exist alongside the old ones. They volunteered at a local food bank on Christmas Eve, serving meals to families in need. They attended midnight mass at the church Amanda had loved, lighting a candle in her memory. On Christmas morning, they opened presents, modest ones, given Jake's budget, but thoughtful, and then drove to the cemetery to leave a wreath on Amanda's grave. "Merry Christmas, Mom," Lily whispered. "We're okay. We're actually okay." In January, something unexpected happened. Jake was at work when he received a phone call from an unfamiliar number with a Nashville area code. "Curious," he answered. "Is this Jake Henderson?" a professional female voice asked. "Yes, this is Jake." "Mr. Henderson, my name is Victoria Bennett, and I work for the George Strait Foundation. Mr. Strait shared your story with us, and we'd like to talk to you about potentially getting involved with our Veterans Outreach Program. We're developing a music therapy initiative for veterans dealing with PTSD and grief, and Mr. Strait thought you might have valuable insights to share, given your own experience." Jake was stunned. "I'm not sure what I could offer. I'm just a mechanic from San Antonio. I'm not a therapist or a counselor." Sometimes the most powerful voices are those of people who have lived through the struggle, Victoria explained. "We're not asking you to be a therapist. We're asking if you'd be willing to share your story at some of our events, to help other veterans understand they're not alone. We'd compensate you for your time and travel, of course." Jake thought about the Wednesday night Veterans Support Group, about the men and women he had met there who were fighting their own battles with invisible wounds. He thought about how much it had helped him to hear their stories, to know he wasn't alone in his struggle. "Can I think about it?" Jake asked. "Talk it over with my daughter and my therapist?" "Of course. Take all the time you need. I'll send you some information by email, and you can reach out when you're ready." That evening, Jake discussed the offer with Lily over dinner. Her reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. "Dad, you have to do it. Think about how much that concert helped you. Now you could help other people the same way. But it would mean travel sometimes, being away from you." "Dad, I'm not a baby. I can stay with Rebecca's family when you have to travel. Or Grandma could come stay with us." Lily reached across the table and took her father's hand. "This is important. Your story is important. You shouldn't keep it to yourself." Jake also discussed it in therapy with Dr. Ramos, who was supportive. "Helping others can be tremendously healing," she said. "It takes your pain and transforms it into purpose. That doesn't erase the pain, but it gives it meaning." After a week of consideration, Jake called Victoria Bennett back and agreed to get involved with the program. His first event was scheduled for March, a small gathering at a VA hospital in Houston, where he would share his story as part of a music therapy workshop. Jake was terrified as the date approached. Public speaking had never been his strength, and talking about Amanda's death, about his darkest moments, felt impossibly vulnerable. But Lily helped him practice. Dr. Ramos helped him organize his thoughts, and the veterans from his support group offered encouragement and advice. The Houston event took place on a Saturday morning in a conference room at the VA hospital. About 30 veterans were in attendance, ranging in age from their 20s to their 70s, representing conflicts from Vietnam to Afghanistan. A music therapist named Jonathan Pierce led the workshop, explaining how music could help process trauma and grief in ways that talk therapy alone sometimes couldn't. Then it was Jake's turn to speak. He stood at the front of the room, his hands shaking slightly, and began. "My name is Jake Henderson. I served with the 101st Airborne in Afghanistan. I came home physically intact, but I brought back demons that I didn't know how to fight. And then, 3 years ago, I lost my wife in a car accident, and those demons got a whole lot louder." He told them about the darkness he had lived in, the isolation, the nights on the back porch drinking and listening to music that only deepened his pain. He told them about Lily's desperate attempt to help him, about winning the concert tickets, about meeting George Strait. "I don't stand here as someone who's completely healed," Jake said honestly. I still have bad days. I still miss my wife so much it physically hurts sometimes. I still struggle with nightmares and hypervigilance and all the other symptoms of PTSD that no one talks about. But I'm learning that healing isn't about erasing the pain. It's about learning to carry it without letting it destroy you. He talked about the song Carrying Your Love With Me and what it had come to mean to him. I spent 3 years trying to hold on to my wife by holding on to grief, thinking that if I let go of the pain, I'd lose her completely. But that night at the concert, I realized the truth. The love doesn't go away. You carry it with you. It becomes part of who you are. And when you accept that, when you stop fighting it and just let yourself carry it, you can start to live again. The room was completely silent when Jake finished speaking. Then, one by one, the veterans stood and applauded. Afterward, several of them came up to shake his hand, to share their own stories, to thank him for his honesty. An older veteran named William Jackson, who had served in Vietnam, gripped Jake's shoulder with tears in his eyes. "I've been carrying my pain for 50 years, son. 50 years of thinking I had to carry it alone, that asking for help was weakness. You just gave me permission to put some of that weight down. Thank you." On the drive back to San Antonio, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. His pain, his struggle, his journey. It all meant something now. It could help others. It could make a difference. Over the next few months, Jake spoke at several more events. A veterans retreat in Dallas, a music therapy program launch in Austin, a fundraiser for military families in San Antonio. Each time, it got a little easier to share his story. And each time, he met veterans whose lives had been changed by hearing it. Lily attended one of the San Antonio events, sitting in the audience with Rebecca and her family. Watching her father speak with confidence and vulnerability, seeing the impact his words had on others, filled her with pride so intense she thought her chest might burst. This was the father she had been trying to reach for 3 years. Present, engaged, purposeful, alive. In May, Jake received another surprise, an invitation to attend the Academy of Country Music Awards as George Strait's personal guest. George was receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award, and he wanted Jake and Lily to be there for the ceremony. "I can't accept this," Jake told Lily when the invitation arrived. "This is too much. The flights to Las Vegas, the hotel, taking you out of school." "Dad," Lily said with the particular exasperation only a 12-year-old could muster, "George Strait invited us to the ACM Awards. We're going. End of discussion. I'll make up the schoolwork. And you have vacation days you never used. We're going." And so, in mid-May, Jake and Lily found themselves on an airplane for the first time in Lily's life, flying to Las Vegas for one of country music's biggest nights. The George Strait Foundation had arranged everything: first-class tickets, a suite at a hotel on the Strip, transportation to and from the awards ceremony. The night of the awards, Lily wore a new dress, emerald green, more sophisticated than anything she had owned before. And Jake wore a suit he had bought specifically for the occasion. They felt out of place among the country music royalty filing into the venue, but George's assistant found them immediately and escorted them to premium seats near the stage. The show was spectacular. Performances by the biggest names in country music, awards presented in various categories, the glitz and glamour of an industry that celebrated its artists. But the highlight came near the end of the evening, when Randy Travis took the stage to present George Strait with the Career Achievement Award. George's acceptance speech was characteristically humble and gracious, thanking his family, his band, his fans, and the songwriters who had crafted the hits that defined his career. But toward the end, he said something unexpected. "I also want to acknowledge that music is more than entertainment. It's healing. It's connection. It's a way we make sense of this complicated, beautiful, heartbreaking life. Last year, I met a veteran and his daughter who reminded me of that truth in a powerful way. Their story inspired the George Strait Foundation to launch our Veterans Music Therapy program, which has now served over 500 military families. The camera panned to Jake and Lily in the audience, and suddenly, their faces were on giant screens throughout the venue. Lily grabbed Jake's hand, both of them overwhelmed and embarrassed and honored all at once. Jake Henderson, if you're watching, and I know you're here tonight, thank you for your service. Thank you for your courage in sharing your story. And thank you for reminding me why I do what I do, George said, looking directly at them. You're carrying your love forward in a way that's changing lives. That's real heroism. The audience applauded, and Jake felt tears streaming down his face for what felt like the millionth time since that concert in Austin. But these were tears of gratitude, of purpose fulfilled, of a life that had found meaning again after unimaginable loss. Backstage after the ceremony, they got to congratulate George in person. He pulled them both into a hug. This man, who had somehow become part of their healing journey. "How are you both doing?" George asked. "We're good," Jake said. And for the first time in 3 years, it was completely true. Really good. Thank you doesn't seem like enough for everything you've done for us. You did the hard work, George said. I just played a song. You chose to heal. You chose to turn your pain into purpose. That's all you, Jake. Before they left, George gave Lily a guitar, a beautiful acoustic, far better than the pawn shop one that had belonged to Amanda. Keep practicing, he told her. Music has power. Maybe someday you'll use it to heal someone else. The flight home to San Antonio felt different than the flight to Las Vegas. Jake and Lily talked about the ceremony, about the surreal experience of being acknowledged on national television, about the future. Lily was already planning to audition for advanced choir at school, maybe even try out for a local youth theater production. Jake was considering going back to school himself, maybe studying counseling so he could work more formally with veterans. Mom would be proud of us, Lily said as the plane descended toward San Antonio. Yeah, Jake agreed. She really would. Life settled back into a new normal after the awards show. Jake continued his work at the mechanic shop. Robert had given him a raise and more responsibilities, while also staying involved with the Veterans Program. He spoke at events once or twice a month, always finding it meaningful despite the emotional difficulty. His relationship with Lily deepened as they both healed, becoming more like partners navigating life together rather than a broken father and a daughter trying to hold him together. Dr. Ramos eventually transitioned Jake from weekly therapy to monthly check-ins, proud of the progress he had made. The PTSD symptoms didn't disappear completely. Jake still had occasional nightmares, still struggled with hypervigilance in crowded places, but he had tools now to manage them, and he no longer felt like a prisoner to his trauma. The Wednesday night Veterans Support Group remained a constant, a place where Jake could be completely honest about his struggles without judgment. He had become something of a mentor to newer members, the guy who had been in the depths and climbed out, living proof that healing was possible. One evening in late June, almost a year after the concert in Austin, Jake and Lily were sitting on the back porch practicing guitar. They had graduated from simple chords to actual songs. Both of them were still beginners, but they could stumble through recognizable melodies now. The summer air was warm but not oppressive, and lightning bugs blinked in the yard, tiny stars against the gathering darkness. "Dad, can we play Carrying Your Love With Me?" Lily asked. "I think we're good enough now." Jake hesitated for only a moment before nodding. They had the chord chart pulled up on Lily's phone, and together they worked through the progression. Their playing rough but earnest. When they got to the chorus, they sang together. their voices blending in the evening air. "Baby, all I got is this beat-up leather bag, full of worn-out clothes that don't fit me right. The only thing that I'm sure of is this burning in my heart, and I'm carrying your love with me." It wasn't perfect. The guitar playing was amateur, and their singing was off-key in places. But it was real and honest, and full of love. For Amanda, for each other, for the life they were building from the ashes of tragedy. When they finished, Jake set down his guitar and pulled Lily into a hug. "I love you so much, Lil. I don't tell you that enough, but I need you to know. You saved my life. Literally saved it. I wouldn't be here without you." "We saved each other," Lily said, repeating what had become their mantra. "That's what family does." That night, for the first time in 3 years, Jake didn't dream of the accident or the war. He dreamed of Amanda, but it was a good dream, a memory of their wedding day, dancing together in a room full of friends and family, her smile bright and real and full of joy. In the dream, she leaned close and whispered, "I'm so proud of you. Keep going, keep living, keep loving. Carry me with you, but don't let me hold you back." Jake woke up with tears on his face, but peace in his heart. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the San Antonio sky in shades of pink and gold. He got up and went for his morning run, his body strong and capable, his mind clear. When he returned home, Lily was already awake, making pancakes in the kitchen, music playing from her phone. George Strait, of course. "Morning, Dad," she called out. "I made your favorite, chocolate chip. You're the best, sweetheart." They ate breakfast together as the house filled with morning light, talking about their plans for the day. Lily had a choir rehearsal. Jake had promised to help Daniel Rodriguez from the veterans group fix his car. Simple, ordinary things. Beautiful things. As they cleared the dishes, Jake paused to look at the signed poster on the wall, at the photographs displayed on the bookshelf, at his daughter humming off-key while loading the dishwasher. This life, this patchwork of grief and healing, of memory and possibility, of endings and new beginnings, was his. Not the life he had imagined or planned for, but his nonetheless. And it was enough. More than enough. It was actually pretty beautiful. Jake thought of George's words from that night in Austin. "You're carrying your love with you." He finally understood what that meant. Amanda wasn't gone. Not really. She lived in Lily's laugh, in the guitar collecting dust in the attic that was now creating music again, in the way Jake showed up for people who were struggling, in every choice he made to keep moving forward instead of staying frozen in grief. He was carrying her love with him, not as a burden, but as a gift that had shaped him, broken him, and ultimately helped remake him into someone stronger, more compassionate, more alive than he had ever been before. The future stretched out ahead, uncertain and full of possibility. There would be hard days still, anniversaries and milestones that Amanda wouldn't be there for, moments when the grief would surge back with unexpected force. But there would also be good days, great days, days full of laughter and music and connection. Jake had learned that healing wasn't about choosing between grief and joy. It was about making space for both, about learning to carry love forward even, especially, through loss. And so, he would keep carrying it. For Amanda, for Lily, for himself, for all the other veterans and families struggling to find their way through darkness toward light. One day at a time, one song at a time, one moment of courage at a time, carrying love with him, always.